ABC's Morgan Norwood reports.
This afternoon, Texas Department of Safety officials admitting that officers who first responded to Robb Elementary should have acted sooner to take down the gunman. Authorities say the incident commander believed he was no longer dealing with an active shooter, but a barricaded subject, and that the children were no longer at risk.
That's right, folks. Stephen Mccraw, director of Texas Department of Public Safety, held a press briefing today in which he alluded to the incident commander failing to properly understand the situation he faced. The actual press briefing went on for nearly an hour, most of which was answering questions from journalists, most of which he either did not answer or gave the same answer over and over again. We'll go ahead and view the beginning half of the press briefing, as I watched the whole thing already, and trust me, it's a shit show. As always, I'll have a link to the full press briefing down below. Let's get to it.
Good morning. Thank you for being here today. My name is Stephen Mccraw, Director of Texas Department of Public Safety. On Tuesday, the District Attorney for the 38th Judicial District, Christina Mitchell, requested that the Texas Rangers, under the Department of Public Safety, assume lead responsibility of this horrific murder of 19 innocent child and 2 adults. Our goal today is to provide the parents, the community of Uvalde, the public, as much information as we can on where we are on the investigation. We're here to report the facts as we know them now, not to defend what was done or to criticize what was done or the actions taken. I'll begin first and foremost with the timeline as we know it. The second timeline I'll discuss is the 911 timeline. Then we'll talk about the relevant social or digital media footprint of the subject. Then we'll also have plenty of time for questions at that point. At 11:27, we know from video evidence, at 11:27, the exterior door suspected of where we knew the shooter entered, Ramos, was propped open by a teacher. 11:28.
A lot of questions about that prop door.
Ditch, as previously described. The teacher runs to the room 132 to retrieve a phone, and that same teacher walks back to the exit door, and door remains propped open. There were 2 males, as reported by Regional Director Escalon yesterday. There were 2 males at a funeral home that when they heard the crash, they went to the crash scene. When they arrived at the crash scene, before they got there, they saw a man with a gun exit the passenger side with a backpack, and they immediately began running. Ramos began shooting at him. Did not hit him. One of the males fell when he was running. Both males returned to the funeral home while they're running. And then again, we see through video, teacher reemerges inside the school in panic and apparently calls 911. 911 call at 11:30. There was a crash, man with a gun. 11:31, the suspect reaches last row of vehicles in the school parking lot. 11:31, the suspect shooting began at the school while patrol vehicles got to the funeral home. I'll point out where it is.
So he's got all these timelines down because of the security camera and eyewitness statements. Audio sucks. Says the suspect was over there behind the vehicle where he started shooting.
There was a discussion early on that an ISD, consolidated ISD for Uvalde, had officer, was a resource officer.
He's got this map about
the subject that did not
5-6 feet away from him,
as R.D. Escalon talked about
where all the
yesterday.
mics are.
It was certainly stated in preliminary interviews, but often these preliminary interviews and a cursory walkthrough doesn't reveal the type of information, and certainly, police officers, like anyone else, under stress, sometimes witnesses get it wrong. But the bottom line is that officer was not on scene, not on campus, but had heard the 911 call with a man with a gun, drove immediately to the area, sped to what he thought was the man with a gun, to the back of the school, what turned out to be a teacher, and not the suspect. In doing so, he drove right by the suspect, who was hunkered down behind a vehicle, where he began shooting at the school.
This is the police officer that's stationed at the school. So he wasn't there for whatever reason. We don't know. He's not answering that question. Hears about the 911 call, and he starts hauling ass over there to go find out what's going on. He drives right past the shooter, and he goes and accosts a teacher in the back of the school.
11:31, the suspect shooting in between the vehicle is when it began. While patrol vehicle gets to the funeral home. Multiple shots are fired outside the school at 11:31. Patrol car accelerates in the parking lot, drives by the shooter. That's exactly what I was talking about. It was the ISD officer at that time. He passes and then leaves the camera view. There's multiple shots fired at the school at 11:32, at 11:32:27, at 11:32:36. At 11:33 is when the suspect entered the school at the door that I'm pointing to now. At 11:33, the suspect begins shooting into room 111 or 112. It's not possible to determine from the video angle that we have at this point in time. We do know this, that he shot more than 100 rounds based on the audio evidence at that time. At least 100 rounds.
Fucking scumbag.
He entered at 11:33, or 11:33, he started shooting in the classrooms, 111 and 112. And 11:35, 3 police officers entered the same door as the suspect entered. All 3 of those police officers worked for the Uvalde Police Department. They were later followed by another 4, a team of Uvalde police officers, 3, and also a county deputy sheriff. So a total of 7 officers were on the scene. The 3 initial police officers that arrived went directly to the door, and 2 received grazing wounds at that time from the suspect while the door was closed. At 11:37, there was more gunfire. Another 16 rounds was fired at 11:37.
Well, there's going to be a lot of
One at 11:37.
a lot of questions that get answered
11:40, 11:44, at 11:51.
once these body cams come
The
out.
agents started to arrive. At 12:03, officers continued to arrive in the hallway, and there was as many as 19 officers at that time in that hallway.
So obviously we got some issues here, right? You got a lot of police officers at the scene now, and this is just before 12 here.
At 12:15, we know that BORTAC members arrived. Not the entire BORTAC, but members of BORTAC, along with Shields. At 12:21, the suspect fired again, was believed to be at the door. At 11:21, law enforcement moved down the hallway. At 11:50, they breached the door using keys that they're able to get from the janitor.
11:21 to 12. Hold on.
They breached the enforcement believed to be. The suspect fired again, was believed to be at the door. At 11:21, law enforcement moved down the hallway. At 11:50, they breached the door using keys that they're able to get from the janitor because both doors were locked. Though both of the classrooms that he shot into.
Yeah, I don't know if it's his timelines just ain't adding up. If it's his paperwork or he's just reading it wrong. None of this makes sense, right? These timelines are all kinds of fucked up, man.
Were locked when officers arrived. They killed the suspect at that time. And now I'd like to go over the 911 timeline.
If you listen to that, it sounds like they killed him before 12 o'clock. But then the officers that they were waiting for didn't get there until 12:15, 12:21. Start moving out, and then I think he's just reading the paperwork wrong. So let's just give him the benefit of the doubt.
So I warn you, it's not. It's better that I read it than you listen to it.
I believe it.
caller identified, I'll not say her name, but she was in room 112, called 911 at 12:03. The duration of the call was 1 minute and 23 seconds.
Yeah, obviously he was reading out those numbers wrong. Called 911 at 12:03. This is the first 911 call, supposedly, at least in our timeline that he's given us. And just a moment ago, he said at like 11:50, they killed the guy. So obviously he's reading the wrong paperwork, or his eyes just ain't, adjusting right to the sunlight, or whatever it is. His timelines are messed up.
She identified herself and whispered she's in room 112. At 12:10, she called back in room 12, advised there multiple are dead. 12:13, again she called on the phone. Again at 12:16, she called back and said there was 8 to 9 students alive. At 12:19, the 911 call was made, and another person in room 111 called. I will not say her name. She hung up when another student told her to hang up. At 12:21, you could hear over the 911 call that 3 shots were fired. At 12:36, 911 call, it lasted for 21 seconds. The initial caller called back, student, child, called back, and was told to stay on the line and be very quiet. She told 911 that he shot the door. At approximately 12:43 and 12:47, she asked 911 to please send the police now. At approximately 12:43, 12:47,
12:47.
911 to please send the police now.
Both times. We know that the police have already, gotten about 19 officers there 20 minutes before this, 25 minutes before this.
At 12:46, she said that she could hear the police next door. At 12:50, shots are fired. They can be heard over the 911 call. And at 12:51 is very loud and sounds like the officers are moving children out of the room. At that time, the first child that called was outside before the call cuts off. Additional information that we have is that there are 58 total magazines at the school related to the crime scene. 11 of those magazines were inside the school. 3 were on the suspect's body.
The sicko brought a lot of ammo.
6 inside room 111.
Thank God he didn't get to use half
5
of
were on
it.
the ground, 1 was in the rifle. There were 32 magazines outside the school, but on school property. 1 just outside the school building, and 31 in the suspect's backpack that he did not take into the classrooms with him. There was 15 magazines at the crash site. There were 2 magazines at the suspect's residence for a total of 60 magazines. He
60.
had purchased and had a total of 1,657 total rounds of ammunition.
They say this kid worked at Wendy's. There's a lot of problems around how did he get all the ammo, these magazines, these guns. Supposedly, so they say he bought it with a debit card. So obviously he had the money. Living at home, probably saved some money. But yeah, they talk about later on how we're gonna know more about how he actually got this stuff. If some outside party was giving him the money and whatnot. These are all questions that need to be answered.
15 of those rounds were inside the school. 142 of those were spent cartridges. 173 were live rounds. 922 were outside of the school, but on school property. 22 of those were spent cartridges. 900 were live rounds. 422 were at the crash site. 22 were spent cartridges. 420 of those were live rounds. There's 35 spent law enforcement cartridges total in the school. 8 of those were in the hallway. 27 were inside the classroom. 111 where the suspect was killed.
Boy, these body cams will sure bring a lot of clarity to this. Whether it's cowardice or just bad leadership. That kind of question's not going to get answered.
That he posted, on Facebook,
not today, anyways.
Publicly, that he was going to kill his, he was going to shoot his grandmother. And secondly, after that, that he had shot her, and then third, that he was going to go shoot up a school. That did not happen. It was actually on a message. It was a Facebook application, messenger application to somebody else.
Either way, somebody else knew.
With. We know that through his digital media footprint, and I'll just do by date time, that Ramos asked his sister to help him buy a gun. She flatly refused. That was in September of 21. He made.
If he needed help back in September to buy the gun,
Instagram, a 4-group chat.
Obviously, he wasn't able to get all this other stuff either, right? So that's a question we need answered.
That was on February 28th of 2022. On March 1st of 2022, there was an Instagram he had with 4 people. It was a chat. He discussed him buying a gun. On March 3rd, 2022, there was another 4-person chat. Quotations, word on the street is you are buying a gun. Ramos replied, just bought something. RN. On March 14th, and there was an Instagram posting by the subject, in quotations, 10 more days. A user replied, are you going to shoot up school or something? The subject replied, no, and stop asking dumb questions and you'll see.
So yeah, they're gonna find out that these questions were asked, so if you see something, say something, all right? Don't be afraid to tell on your buddy for acting a fool.
If I can't answer it because we don't know definitively right now, I'll simply say that. And it continues to be a preliminary investigation. There's, literally, certainly over hundreds of interviews have been conducted, will continue to be conducted, and there's thousands of leads that are being pursued, not consecutively, but concurrently. And thanks to our federal...
I swear this guy's audio only comes out of one speaker.
Behind me, we've got the FBI special agent in charge. We also have an ATF special agent in charge, or ASAC, and of course, who else? What I got behind? With Texas Rangers, if there's any specifics that I haven't covered that I might need their particular support on. I do want to cover one thing quickly though before I go to questions, and that's some of the questions that we have already received, and one of those is going around now that in fact the subject had been one of the 2 arrested by the Texas Rangers and the local police back in 2018.
2018. Right, those ain't the same guys.
Clearly, it was a threat. It was back in 2018. The 2 juveniles were charged with attempted or conspiracy to commit capital murder. There's no question that we thought, and we had evidence, and certainly the district attorney agreed, that these juveniles, one 13, one 14 years old, was a threat to Uvalde. And there was a discussion at that time, even the senior year of the one that was 14 years old, which would make it 2022. However, that was not the subject. Questions?
All right, so here we go with the questioning. We're going to go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. So basically, like I said earlier, all the questions up until this point were all answered the same. Either I'm not answering, or it's the same answer. That the incident commander was under the impression that it was a barricaded situation and not an active shooter situation anymore. So that's their explanation on why they didn't move in sooner. Here we're going to hear another question being asked and answered. We have the only other difference here in the questioning. So let's check it out.
There was no kids at risk. I wished he was. I wished he was, because then there's no question. And I'll say this right now,
So I couldn't hear the question. It was something along the lines of the group chats and the messaging he was doing with his buddies and stuff. How come nobody said anything sooner? The audio is really crappy here, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is based on the context of what he's answering with.
every time we have one of these and there's copycats, okay? And we need the public, just like we did back in 2018, there was a public, okay, that came forward that we got 2 people that are about to shoot up a school or planning to shoot a school. It's imperative on the public, when you get something, just because it sounds like he's a nut, he may be a nut, but just because it sounds like, well, impossible to do, he may be intended to do, as I've read the timeline based upon the chats that he had. So you know, we need everyone, when we have a threat to life like that, to take it seriously and report it. Because ultimately, this is tragic. What do you tell the parents of 19 kids, or the families of two teachers? Yeah. Or the parents.
That's right, folks. Just a moment ago, we heard Mr. Mccraw blaming the public for not turning him in earlier when he made remarks online, saying, when we have a threat to life like that, to take it seriously and report it. Yet he had 911 calls from the public saying there was an active threat to life that was not taken seriously by the incident commander.
Your reaction to everything that you heard, that press conference got really heated.
I'm sick. I want to throw up. I'm angry. I mean, this guy needs to resign.